Section 1.7, Prefixes and Equalities. When we're talking about prefixes, in the metric system, as well as the SI, we have some of these same prefixes like centi, milli, micro, or kilo, or mega, or tera, that are going to apply to different units of measurement. So we could use all those prefixes with grams, or liters, or meters, or like with your computer, you probably know that if you have something that will store gigabytes, that if you have something else that stores terabytes, that it's going to store more material. So the SI units for prefixes are not just limited to, this chemistry class. You already have an idea in your head that, oh man, I need something. If I'm going to store that video, I'm going to need something that's more than just 64 kilobytes size or something like that. So let's learn a little bit about them. As we go to slide 3, the prefix kilo is a bigger unit than if we had something small like a microgram. Like think of microbiology. Some of you might have taken microbiology. Why do you think they called it microbiology? Or why, with the item that you look at in microbiology, which is a microscope, why do you think they call it micro? Because it's small. We had mentioned at another section that a millimeter would be about the length of my little tiny fingernail, or a centimeter is bigger than that, 10 times bigger than that, about the width of my little finger. Whereas a kilometer, some of you might have seen, that you, go and run a 10K, all right? What does the K stand for? Kilometers. And so the kilo prefix, for example, can be used with, again, the meter, the gram, or the liter. The kilometer is usually how we say it. The kilogram, the kiloliter. So as we go to the next slide, let's look at some of the other prefixes that are bigger than kilo that I mentioned earlier. Mega, giga, tera. Now in this class, honestly, the one that's going to be the biggest that we'll be using in this particular chemistry class will be kilo, which is 1,000 times, so like a kilometer or a kilometer is 1,000 times the size of 1 meter, or a kilogram is 1,000 times a gram. So then on our next slide, now then we're talking about our smaller prefixes. So yes, deci is 1/10 of the size, but we don't use deci a whole lot. If you're thinking about sounds and music, sometimes if decibels get too many, then you know that that's too loud. And if you're wondering what the heck a decibel was, well, that's 1/10 of a bell. And so it actually is used, and you know that you've said that word, even though you probably didn't know what it meant. Centi, is 1/100th. Milli is 1,000th. Micro, nano, pico, you probably used the word, in a nanosecond or something, and you knew that meant a tiny little number, but you probably didn't know exactly. But we're going to, in this class, for the most part, really honestly use our centi and our milli. And so 100 cents are in $1. And so 100 centimeters are in a meter. As we look at this next slide, we can see that conversion, that 1 meter is 100 centimeters, or 1 meter is 1,000 millimeters. Those are actual conversions, that 100 centimeters is 1 meter, or 1 meter is 100 centimeters. We could use that either way. So I'm setting this up, or this section is actually setting us up for the next couple of sections. The next slide, the metric length of 1 meter is about the same as 100 centimeters, or 1,000 millimeters. Well, it's exactly the same as that amount. But if you're still not sure what a meter's length is, think about just a little bit longer than a yardstick. Even though they quite often say, oh, you shouldn't think of it that way. Well, sometimes it does help to think of it that way. When we're talking about liters, liters is a volume unit, but if we are going to measure the length times the width times the height of a cube, that comes out to be a cubic centimeter, or a cc. That also can be used as a unit of volume. And so here's a really, really important conversion, that 1 cubic centimeter, or 1 cc, is 1 milliliter. You need to realize that that unit of size is the same amount, because 1 milliliter of a liquid would actually fit into a little tiny box the size of 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. 1 milliliter of liquid would fit into a cubic centimeter. So make sure you circle that. A few more examples we have here. So like we've already mentioned before about that a kilogram or a kilometer or a kiloliter was 1,000 times bigger than the gram or the meter or the liter. And so you could use that interchangeably, that 1,000 grams is 1 kilogram, or 1 kilogram is 1,000 grams. Or we go down 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams, or 1,000 milligrams is a gram. So hopefully, you know, if you're thinking about my fingernails or my finger, on A, which is the larger unit, well, our centimeter is a larger unit than a millimeter. On B, kilogram or centigram, well, our kilo is 1,000 times a gram, whereas a centigram is, 1/100th of a gram, because it takes 100 cents in a dollar, So our kilogram, I'm assuming, and hopefully you know, is bigger than the centigram. And the milliliter for C, or the microliter is even smaller, so our milliliter is bigger than a microliter.